So this is our first ever AMA.
Yes.
And
so we think it should be actually AUA, Ask Us Anything.
Very good. Very good.
Of Ask Me.
At first I thought it was MMA, and so that was pretty, I thought maybe we had to get in our sumo suits or something.
It's been done.
It has been.
So is it all working as far as we can tell, our team of technicians?
I think so.
Good. Well, anyway, I guess the format is that people have asked questions ahead of time online. They can actually ask live today somehow.
Yeah. And
our host with the most, Tiana, who's off camera, is going to be trying to make us squirm as she asks us stuff. And this is all impromptu, unscripted.
It is. So this
unplugged.
And I don't even know what you're going to say.
I have no idea what he's going to say either. So this could be interesting. This is how people will see the decision-making process at SAFE.
That's right.
So Tiana, you want to give us the first one?
Yeah, so the first question comes from Matthew. He says, where did the SAFE and SAFE software come from?
Well, when Dale and I started our work together on this project, we never even have a company name, but there was this format, Spatial Archive and Interchange format, SAIF, that we were working on. And we thought it was going to overtake the world because it was a lot like XML.
Yeah, but of course XML wasn't invented yet.
That's
really.
right. So this is like the father of XML in some way.
Perhaps.
Yeah. And so we thought this thing was going to be big and great. And so we decided we're going to be smart and we're going to name the company after SAIF, SAFE. But of course, we didn't take that spelling.
No, because we thought we did hedge our bets slightly.
Yeah.
And so we went with SAFE. And at the time it was 1993.
Yeah.
And so I remember I had three choices and I contacted the domain registrar with my various choices, but I tried for safe.com as the first one. And for $50 I got her.
That's right.
Could have had anything else, but I went with safe.com.
We could have got Coca-Cola.
Could have got Coca-Cola, could have got loans.com, anything, but no, we got safe.com.
That's right.
And that's how we have it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so the next question is from Sigtil. He asks, if you had to predict the future, what would be the biggest change between FME 2015 and FME 2050?
2050. So let's see, it's 35 years from now.
Yeah. Well, so, I'll be 84, and
it'll have big type.
We'll have special lifts in the stairs. But I think it's always fun to answer things about the future. But I think we're going to see the convergence of a lot of things we're seeing today. Data is going to be bigger. It's going to be faster. So it's going to be updates are going to be in real time. Everybody's going to want everything on demand. But data is going to be more important than ever. I can imagine we're starting to see it in Minecraft. I can imagine, we're all we have this connected reality. So what's the Microsoft thing called?
HoloLens. There's also these Magic Leap guys.
Yeah, there's Oculus Rift. And so I think we're going to see this full immersive data environment. The data is going to be too much data to even store it. So maybe FME will be used as a way to decide what you're going to keep and what you're not going to keep. So
I think as well, you're going to see workspaces that, of course, will be, as you're even thinking about what comes next, not only does that pop down, but the actual results will be computed as fast as you can think of what you'd like to do. Because 35 years is an outrageously long time.
Oh, yeah.
So the other thing is, I think you're going to wander around inside of your workspace. You'll be able to visualize it in using these tools that we're talking about, or whatever the third or fourth generation after that is. So you'll be wandering around inside your data, visualizing it in real time, using augmented or virtual enhanced reality of some sort.
Yeah.
So it'll be pretty impressive.
Yeah, but data, at the end of the day, data is going to be more important.
And I think actually the data inspector will be finished. That's my #1 prediction.
And it'll all be cloud. It'll all be cloud, yeah.
Okay, Antonio asks, are there plans to do something like Esri did, ArcGIS for home use? Can we expect to have FME for home use?
So I think Don wrote a blog about this idea in 2009. Roger just pointed out. So,
that's right.
So we're definitely doing our due diligence around this issue.
That's right. And we just had a big announcement yesterday about the whole grant program, where anybody who's a student, a graduate, or doing humanitarian work or anything like that, you can just get a license. And if anybody contacted us and they really wanted an FME for home just to play around with, use, learn, things like that, I'm sure we'd give them a long evaluation. But we do have works underway to a new licensing model that we're working towards. Yeah.
So I think it is something we're open to. And I know that there's a question, I'm going to preempt it, coming up about also an FME that can basically read things or view things for free for everybody. And so that's another variation of that idea as well. We're actually, part of it is we're always looking at how can we also make FME easier for people to try out.
Yeah.
And that's this all ties together. So, you know, is there a home thing? Is there some sort of freemium thing?
Yeah.
And then how do we let people try out FME with less pain?
Yeah, because right now we think it's too hard.
Yeah.
Because you know you just can't download and go. You got to download, then you got to get your code, then you got to enter your code. And
See,
it's just too much horsing around.
It goes back to our early days when basically we tried hard to make people kind of delay them from buying stuff.
That's right.
Because man, if you bought something, that means we have to stop coding and actually ship something or make an invoice.
Right. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll have a buy button on the website.
That's going a bit too far.
Okay, next question's from Itay. He asks, is there a place for small size companies / freelancers in the GIS ETL sector?
Absolutely, there is. If I think about it, and we've made a choice at SAFE not to do professional services. In general, we have to be kind of pulled kicking and dragging and screaming, whatever the terms would be, into doing that because we want to focus on making the best possible product that we can. That leaves an enormous amount of money on the table, an enormous amount of opportunity for people that know how to use our tool to go in and work magic wherever they can. And it's the case when if you know FME and you walk into an organization, it's like you're coming from another planet with alien technology.
Yeah.
It's almost violating the Prime Directive.
It is. Yeah, and the spatial, I mean, really, it's just an idea too. Like even if you were like two young guys or a young guy and you want to get started, there's just, if you come up with the right idea, now the barrier to entry is much lower than ever before.
Yes.
If you want to even build a big cloud solution now with Amazon technology or other cloud technology, you can just go.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, you'd have to set up an entire data center, and then you'd have to guess bandwidth and all these sorts of things. So I think more than ever, the answer is yes. And I think, where do all the good ideas come from? They rarely come from big, massive organizations. They almost always come from just, you know, a small person with an idea, right?
And to your point, I think Itay has just set up, I was reading his blog on LinkedIn. He is using FME Cloud to set up a service that others can use. And see, actually, even within our little universe, the barrier to entry has dropped dramatically because you don't have to buy an FME server to start doing stuff or have hardware outside of a firewall for just a few bucks, literally an hour. Is it even $1 an hour?
It's like $1 an hour, 90 cents
so you can start to put something up that people can do stuff with. So very, very low barrier to entry. Really a fabulous opportunity, a fabulous time. And to top it off, it's not like the world's making less data.
No.
So there's just all kinds of opportunity for that. And hey, actually, I'm aware of quite a number of small consulting shops that are doing great stuff with FME. So lots of opportunity.
Yeah.
Next question's from SRG. He asks, had you not founded SAFE Software and developed FME, what would you have been doing today?
That's an interesting one. You know, both of us are kind of alternative energy hobbyists.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if my life path would have got me there, but I could certainly imagine being some kind of a solar energy or electrician kind of guy that, although I'm afraid of heights. So going up on roofs might not have been the best thing.
That's right. Yeah. So for me, right from the start, that's what Dale and I met. We were technology junkies. You know, growing up, we played with technology. So, you know, it wasn't like when we started SAFE that we kind of ever said, hey, if SAFE doesn't work, that's it. We're going to go on to something else. So I imagine I would have been developing software someplace else, but not having nearly as much fun.
There's a great book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, right?
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing is that, of course, Don and I lived through, and we're software guys through the app revolution. But we were too busy with what we were doing to actually take advantage of that and catch that wave. If we hadn't started SAFE, maybe we'd have been a couple years later and we would have made Angry Birds and we'd be retired right now and sitting on a beach somewhere.
That's right, waiting for our first movie. Yeah, that's right.
I've been opening our theme park.
Yeah.
So this is from Adam. You kind of answered it with the grant program, but yes, how can a hobbyist or open source developer get started with FME given the high cost barrier to entry?
And that's actually, I mean, that is a great point, and it relates to this idea of a free FME for, you know, maybe somehow it's restricted or it's cut down or in any case, but we do want to help people like that. I mean, we've actually always been kind of friends to the people that are trying interesting ideas. As Don pointed out, that's a great fount of great information and ideas and innovation are the small shops.
That's right. And again, I would say contact us. We have a philosophy at SAFE, and that's we don't make money from partners, we make money with partners. So we've supported a lot of folks starting out, and the agreement is, hey, if what you're building is successful, buy the FME. If it isn't, you've already invested a lot of time, and gee, we're sorry it wasn't successful. But
yes, I mean, in practice, we are doing that. The idea of a free FME is happening in practice today. It's just not a big button on our website.
That's right.
But if you contact us and tell us your story, we usually can, almost always, I'm not aware of any case where we haven't worked with somebody who says, hey, in fact, actually, just in the last week, I didn't even tell you this, one of our early customers was in touch with me. He's retired now, but he and another guy are
Kurt Carlson.
No, it's not Kurt. Kurt Carlson actually is in touch with me too. Hey, Kurt, if you're watching, Kurt was actually in touch with me too. He wants to use FME for genealogy data.
Okay.
But we haven't built a reader or writer. If there's anybody out there that's a genealogy fan,
is he going to Utah by any chance?
Well, it's related to it. The main format comes out of Utah. It's called GEDCOM, but we haven't done anything with that. But the other guy was a former photogrammetrist, and he and his friend want to do some experimenting. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't really have money to spend on it. So great, we're going to let them have a couple FMEs for a year, and then they'll see what they can do.
Okay. How do you see SAFE's relationship with Google, Ogre, and the open source community evolving over time?
Yeah, I mean, we support the open source community. We're friends with the open source community, and they do a lot of great work. And we're happy to try to bring it in and try to make it try to make it easier to use. How many open source libraries do we have in FME?
We just had a number the other day. There's a total of 355 libraries. I think some of those would be from third parties or proprietary, but a lot of them are open source. Actually, we were part of the beginning of both Google and Ogre in their own way. I wouldn't want to overstate that, but we were players at the table with some of those early folks, particularly Frank, longtime friend of ours, and still is. We still see him from time to time at different conferences. But he did some work actually for SAFE. It's got to be in the late 90s. And actually he came and helped us with our raster stuff, and a lot of the early OGR formats, before it was called OGR, were paid for by SAFE. And that kind of tradition continues today. We have a lot to do with our friend Even, and so there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. We don't like to, we kind of don't like to have it hammered on a big poster in front of our webpage, but quietly behind the scenes, we do an awful lot, as do a lot of other commercial vendors. Frankly, there's a lot of realization that there's a shared value in having solid open source framework for a lot of this stuff that then the various vendors can add value on and concentrate on what it is they do best. Because
the last thing we want to do is reinvent the wheel. So if we find a good library out there, we'll support that development, and then it's one less thing we have to do.
I mean, I would say, if anything, over the years, sometimes there's been a few of the open source libraries where there's just nobody on the other end of the phone that we can actually get to do stuff for us. So that's actually been more of a challenge. So in terms of an ongoing relationship, the one thing that we hope and will try to encourage is that the key libraries have a solid, sustainable infrastructure behind them, because that is actually one of the dangers in open source, is that the people lose interest and move on. And
we always enjoy good friends with Paul Ramsey as well. And
he challenges us all the time.
He does, and he was one of the guest speakers at our user conference last year, and I'm a huge fan of PostGIS. And
Okay, I'm going to summarize Kimmy's question a little bit. It's a long one, but basically, how do you think spatial data will evolve in the future?
Well, I think I think it's going to. I mean, first we saw 2D and vector, and then raster. I think we're going to see just more and more 3D. LiDAR data scanners are getting cheaper and cheaper. So I think we're going to see geolocation in buildings. We're going to see in buildings routing, and really the difference between outdoors and indoors is just going to blend into one contiguous 3D universe, really. And I think augmented reality also is interesting, where you'll be able to, when you look at things, you'll be able to see things that aren't really there, but they'll appear to be there. And other than that, I'd say XML is going to become more important than ever. And
I wouldn't be surprised that in a few years that watch you got on your hand there, Don, will have a LiDAR scanner, and you can just hit a button, and it'll scan the room, and off we go. I mean, I'm not even.
I know you're not joking, and I just want to make because when we were at Google I/O last year, they had like iPads that had multiple cameras, and they were able
Tango thing, right?
The Tango thing, and they were able to easily walk around, and you could create the interior of a room. So data is going to be more important. I mean, and video is going to be huge. With
I think that, you know, for those that are following the FME story, sort of geotagged video is the one kind of outlier for us that we don't really do stuff with today. And I would be very surprised if we didn't have that as a full citizen of FME in the next couple of years, because related to all this is the decrease in cost of the acquisition hardware. So
like GoPros and
these drone things and so on. And these things are going to like capturing video because it's a very simple thing to do. And so that's going to have a GPS tag on it. And so we're going to have to start to do something with that.
That's right. And now they have 3D cameras where basically they're filming all the way around. You've probably seen them. So very exciting.
Lots of opportunity and I think change happening there. Last thing would be just the whole Internet of Things or industrial internet. There's location that's part of all those sensors, and so that's going to be fueling our fire. Absolutely. And the other thing that is there, I was reading a thing yesterday, Don. You know what else is part of all those sensors?
What's that?
Time.
Yes.
And so it might be time. Nobody asked us about dates and times, but it might be time to make that first-class citizen in FME.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yes.
Okay. FME Workbench is a great tool for everyday GIS work, but will we see FME GIS desktop in the future to save us all?
Well, I'm not sure what it'll save you from.
That's right. But the short answer is no. There's no plans to turn FME into a GIS or a data editing. Right from the ground, we've been data pipe, and there's just so much data already being created, and so our whole shtick is to focus on just moving all kinds of data from wherever it's collected to wherever you want it to be, and that keeps us busy.
Right. I mean, it's part of a general philosophy that I would say as a technology company. And also if you're someone that uses technology, I'm a pretty big believer, as is Don, of using the niche applications that are the absolute best at what they do, and then use whatever number of them you need to get your job done. So try not to, or at least the way we're trying to run this company is not to bet the farm on just one platform, but pick many platforms, glue them together in a lightweight way, and use the best of breed for everything. You're going to see us moving on some of the public facing stuff that we have related to that. And that's the same reason why I don't think we want to bite off stuff that's sort of on the fringe to us. There's many people that are great at making platforms for collecting data. We don't really want to tangle in there because that's what other people do.
That's right. So we're the pipe. We're not going to build a database or anything like that either. But so at Safe, Dale mentioned we're using a whole bunch of different technologies. How are we gluing all those together?
Well, we found this really nice tool called FME actually that we're using. We're eating our own dog food here quite a bit. It helps us learn. We don't necessarily publicize all those things, but we lick our wounds from some of our experiments and use it to make our product better. Someday maybe we'll go public with how we glue together. And actually most of it is non-spatial.
That's right.
It's the data is flowing around here.
So that would be a good blog article, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Slack to Salesforce and all those things.
Right. We're using Slack now. That's an example of one of these smaller niche things that does one thing, does it well, and then can glue together with many other things.
So.
Andreas asks, what's the next big thing for SAFE? Are you thinking about extending the data inspector into a lightweight editor tool?
I think we kind of covered that off. So the answer would be no. But I would imagine that we'd want to take the data inspector into video so you can watch YouTube on there.
That's right.
Geolocated YouTube.
That's right. And certainly on the cloud front, right now, what we do with the cloud is we enable FME server to run in the cloud, but I would argue we're not actually leveraging the cloud. The cloud is an infinite compute platform. So, if you look out FME cloud in the future, you can imagine just being able to bring all the compute power you need on demand to do a task and not have, simply use it as a way of launching a new FME server. So I'd say,
Bruce wants to know if Vancouver is like San Francisco, where it's difficult to secure talent that can afford to live there.
Well, it is. Obviously a very expensive city, at least the core of Vancouver is. And so the answer is that, yes, it is. And as well, many other companies have figured out that Vancouver is a fantastic place that people want to live, and they've set up shop here. So we have to try to differentiate ourselves and offer a lot of compelling reasons for fantastic people to want to work with us. And I'd say based on the strength of this team, by and large, we must have figured that out.
Yeah, yeah. And we are out of Vancouver about 40 minutes. So
yeah.
So we're quite a bit south. So it's a little more affordable, but I wouldn't say that it's inexpensive or easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to look at where our staff live. Yeah. A pretty big chunk of them do live further east of us where it is more affordable. And of course, there is a chunk that live downtown, but no matter where they live, we're kind of not the way everybody else is driving in the morning. Yeah, so at least that's an advantage as well. Yeah. I don't think, would you say Vancouver's like San Francisco?
I would say, I mean, there are a lot of similarities. They're both really nice cities to walk around with, great restaurants, great sushi. I love San Francisco, but Vancouver with the mountains, it's pretty hard to beat, I gotta say.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, Kenneth has 2 questions. First, he would like to know if you'd consider releasing a free version of the Data Inspector. With so many open data formats, it would be nice to have one tool that can view them all.
That sounds like one ring to rule them all.
That's right. That's right.
This is dangerous if you give it to people.
So this, So this is sort of building on a theme we've heard.
Yes.
So it seems like there's a real want for FME Home Edition and some sort of free FME, and then the free Data Inspector. So we, Dale and I have talked about this off and on, and so I guess you're gonna have to stay tuned. But again, contact us. But it's something we've resisted. But
well, I think the issue for us, I mean, if I'm being really open, is that it's the kind of support and the infrastructure we need to pull that kind of a thing off, and that it results in a good experience for everybody. And so that's what we have to work on. The good news is that every year since 2009, our ability to execute on this is getting better and better and better and better. So anyway, we'll obviously it's a
burning want.
Yeah, it seems like that's at least 4 of our questions seem to be relating to this. So we obviously will look at this and figure out what we do. Once long ago, one of our staff said we'd have to have a certain body part lined up in a row before we did this. And
is that right?
Yeah, okay, it was supposed to be ducks in a row.
Okay.
But it wasn't that we were told. And so I don't know if all the ducks or whatever it was are quite in a row yet, but but we'll try to get there.
Okay.
He also wants to know how big Safe Software is, how many employees, and what's the annual revenue.
Wow. Okay. So we're a private company. So about 120-ish
employees.
Yeah. And revenue 30-ish.
30-ish. Yeah. Depending on, and we won't even say what currency.
We won't even say because it just doesn't.
That's in pesos.
That's right. Yeah.
But and so that's about what I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question was from me. Running a business is obviously very time consuming and must demand a lot more than 40 hours a week. But you're both well-rounded people and make time for family and all the other important things in life. So I wanted to know how you manage to do it all and if you have any time management advice.
Yeah, I would say make some things non-negotiable. So like exercise, I get up early every morning to do it. And believe me, there's mornings where the bed is very comfortable. I just like to stay there. And I think that's it because when you're passionate about something like work, like Dale and I are, it could be all consuming and then everything else in our life could fall apart. And so I'd say that's one strategy I use.
And, long ago, Don and I have attended lots of conferences together, but one that we've always really enjoyed is this Business of Software conference. Yeah. And many years ago, a woman went up there from Stanford and gave a talk on happiness. Mm-hmm. And she identified one strategy to try to cope with the demands on time, where you try to figure out what is it that's most important in your life. And then maybe there's ways of combining. If you have 3 things that you really feel strongly about, like maybe you want to make sure you have some external friends and you want to do something that's volunteering. Well, maybe then you volunteer at, say, like an animal shelter and make friends with the people there. That's giving you a twofer. Or she calls it even sometimes you can get 3 things going at once. So that's a way to try to be efficient with time to, because really when it boils down to it, the most precious and fleeting resource is time. Yes. And so that you always have to look at things through that lens. Yeah. And so that's the key thing. And actually that just results in also not frittering away. So my son is actually giving a talk right now on Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. Yeah. And I go back to that book, and there's very good wisdom. If you look at those 7 habits, they're very, very obvious and straightforward. But one of them is to not spend a lot of time in quadrant 4. So you talk about things that are urgent and important, and you don't want to be spending lots of time on things that aren't urgent and aren't important. And so that's one key to look at your life and say, well, let's just squeeze that down to nearly nothing. And obviously you need a little bit of time in there just for all work and no play makes Dale a dull boy, but that's the thing to be looking at that.
And right from the start, we had a slide from 1993 probably that sort of had the goals of SAFE, and the last 2 points were have fun and have a life.
Right.
And so, and even with our staff here, our team here, we really want them to be well-rounded and do things, because then they're much more interesting and they're happy. And if they spend 20 hours a day working, then really weird things, all their other relationships will fall away. And then their productivity will go down anyway, because they got to do banking and everything. So they're doing it all here. So
one of the things that's been, we mentioned that we just adopted Slack, a nice tool by a Canadian guy that is the founder of it, actually.
Okay.
But one of the things that's warmed my heart a lot is the explosion of the fun _ groups that are in there, because what it shows me is that there's such a fascinating group of people around this place that have really passionate interests in things besides work. And Slack is actually allowing them to connect with each other and allowing me to eavesdrop in to see what the book club people are arguing about. I found out that if someone...
there's a very big discussion on Harry Potter in
that's
there.
Right.
Yeah.
And, basically... different people are ruling out other potential mates based on whether or not they're Harry Potter fans. so I'm
wow,
sure
is that heated, eh?
It is. Yeah, there's people that are passionate about things in this company.
On a similar thread, someone wants to know if you've been thinking about retirement at all. Do you have any plans?
I think I've already retired, because I asked somebody, what is retirement once? And they say, well, you get up in the morning and you do whatever you want, and then you spend the rest of your day having fun. So
actually, that question relates very closely to the previous one about balance and time management and stuff. And so I actually know many people who kind of squeeze it to the age 60 or 65 and then are just happy for the next 2 years. They don't have to go to work. And that's a very sad thing, in my opinion. And so by making a happy life part of the normal day-to-day, it decreases the pressure to want to retire, particularly. So yeah, no plans. Particular plans. No. We're having fun.
So I think if you find something you're passionate about, then it doesn't feel like work, really. Yeah.
Actually, that's another bit of advice that somebody told me. I got to see if I can get these right. The 3 things that sort of make for a happy life is to find work that you're passionate about, that you have some ability for, and that someone will pay you for. Because really, any 2 of those 3 aren't going to do so well. But if you can put all those 3 together, then really, why would you want to quit?
That's right.
Okay, next question. Do you plan to implement a FME webtop, i.e. FME desktop run within a browser?
Yeah, actually, the 2050 question could have addressed that as well, because we're pretty convinced that desktop computers as we know them aren't going to be...
Yeah, people are just buying things like Chromebooks where basically all the work's done in the cloud. Yeah.
So, I used to, in answer to that, if you asked me that question 5 years ago, and people did, I would say, well, what's the point? We're in the business of moving data, and where does the data end up living? The end data is obviously on your desktop or your corporate network. That used to be the answer. That is no longer the answer. And so the question is actually very relevant and very reasonable. We did do some playing with some technology there. Obviously, a completely web environment would not be the same as we know it today, but I would not rule such a thing out at all.
That's right. We played with AWS Workspaces, for example, which is technology that enables. It's still running on Windows hardware, but it's at Amazon. And as Dale alluded to, FME loves to be close to the data.
Maybe we should see if we get Twitch going for FME. We could have a Twitch channel for workspace creation. It'd be awesome.
Okay, next we have a couple questions about photogrammetry. Are there any plans for that?
So what I would say to that is that to do a great job of photogrammetry, you really have to understand that problem domain very, very deeply. And so probably that's too far from the core of what we do to want to actually do. That said, I'm confident that there's packages out there or software out there that may do a great job of certain parts of that. And FME is a fantastic integration platform.
Absolutely.
And so we ourselves, I would not imagine that we would ever bite that off, but if someone wanted to plug in.
Yeah, they could take their technology and create transformers and plug it right into FME. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You know, we're doing that right now. Some people may know Martin Eisenberg's the Rapid Lasso, his LASS tools, for example. Yeah. We do some of this, there's overlap between us and what Martin does. In fact, we use some of Martin's libraries, so of course there's overlap, but he has some very specialized, amazing algorithms related to high-end LiDAR processing. Yeah. And right now down the hall, we're looking at ways, or we're really going to have a way of integrating his stuff in with FME workflows. So if you're a customer of Martin's and a customer of ours, all of a sudden 1 + 1 = 5. And so not even 3. It's so fantastic. Wow. And so that would be my answer as well to someone that's a great, like the Martin Eisenberg of photogrammetry, could do the same thing.
And that's ultimately the goal of FME Store. Now, the vision isn't realized there, so we're still working to get it right. And there will be another iteration on the store. But ultimately, the idea is anybody can take their cool technology and with very little effort, wrap it up and ship it with FME. And it works great with languages like Java and Python, because of course they run everywhere.
Right.
So, yeah.
Philippe wants to know, how did you meet each other and how did you get the idea to play with GIS data?
Well, so Don should answer. I'll talk about GIS data and Don can talk about how we met, because that was
because I still remember the day, which is, I remember weird things in my life. And I remember the day I met my wife, and grade 10. And we didn't date in high school, just in case, but anyway, I still remember the day I met her.
That's for your daughter in case she's listening.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Because she's in grade 10. We did not date in grade 10.
Or 11 or even 12.
Or even, not until university.
Nicola, this is for you.
That's right, that's right. Thanks for that. That's great, yeah. And so Dale was in the, and I remember I went around the team and I met Dale, and of course Dale has the great smile and was very friendly right away. And we were on the same team and we were working on GIS stuff for a project. But ironically, what that project had one big problem. What was the problem in that thing?
It had a terrible database.
Yes.
I mean, I think we can probably say the name. It's called Ontos.
That's right.
And we run the other direction. I remember my early memory of Don was he would come to our status meetings on this project and he would talk about all this amazing progress he's making. And the rest of the 20 people are going like, what is this guy like? And then he would say, oh, but I haven't actually tied it in with that database yet. And we go, oh, that's right. Which should have been a clue that maybe we shouldn't be using that database.
Yeah, or do it at the end. But anyway, yeah.
Right. Yeah, but getting back to GIS data, I'm old enough to
and I'm older than you.
In my university days, really there was barely even a GIS study area, but there was a couple. In my 4th year, I took 2 master's courses in cartography, if you can believe it. So when Dimitri challenges me on, I guess I am a wannabe cartographer.
There you go.
But my cartography was done, I'm not actually exaggerating, it was with punch cards. That was the only class left. And we spent like a whole term to try to get a profile map of the bike route between Banff and Jasper in Alberta. Okay. And so you kind of straighten out that line and get the profile. And today in FME, that would be like about a 10-minute job. But that was like 4 months of hard work. So I was always interested in maps. When I came to join McDonald Detweiler, where I first worked, I worked on weather maps. And then I worked on actually a variety of data translation things for different projects, whether they were for Canadian government or for Malaysian government. And then, so my whole working career really after university was one way or another related to mapping.
Yeah. And the same for me. And the one thing that was funny about that project, which is really ironic that we started SAFE, was this was a GIS you could get data into, but you couldn't get data out. There was no way to get data out. So
at all.
Like it just wasn't possible.
Once you got it in there, that was it.
Yeah. So then here we are. We got together, made it a tool that moved data. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah. What's actually interesting about that project was really land breaking in terms of the technologies it was trying to use, and so it was a wonderful place for young people like Don and I to cut our teeth and try some things. It was actually very advanced in what it was trying to do. 3D, it was doing 3D visualization in a normal monitor. What year was that? Like 89 or 90?
1990.
So really, we had a wonderful start by having a great place to learn a lot of technology.
We C++ with C front and then C back. So that goes way back.
That's way back.
Way back.
Do you think FME could help the Canucks win the Stanley Cup in the future?
Oh, that's a loaded question, because if I say no, does that mean there's no hope?
I think the answer is obviously yes.
Yes, it is.
So we could crunch some. There must be some big data.
We got to crunch a lot of statistics and figure out. It's sort of like the Moneyball movie, right? Except for hockey.
Yes.
Yeah,
Actually, Don's a big hockey guy. A lot of people don't know this, and you come into his office at lunchtime, you'll often see him poring over some sort of diagram of where people are on an ice rink.
That's right, for my next practice plan.
Yeah. So maybe we should use FME for that, like to kind of turn it loose on a rink and see what happens.
Do you have any plans for a podcast?
You know, I think that's a really interesting idea. And I mean, the challenge for us would be to come up with something interesting to say on a regular basis. We do sit in a very interesting spot in the industry because we're right in the middle of all the developments and new technology that's happening. So there would be no shortage of topics.
And you know, and one idea is we could have customers that talk about some of the interesting things they've done with data. So
So anyway, I think, you know, let us know.
And we wouldn't have to get worried about getting tied up and showing details of workspaces.
That's right. That's right. I don't think we do like a vodcast, but it might be an interesting thing to try.
Okay, and today is the 1-year anniversary of the last FMEUC.
Wow,
so we'd like to know, when is the next one?
What did we say?
We said June of 2017.
And I cannot believe that it's 1 year since the last UC.
I know.
It feels like you just got home from being downtown for a week. And so that is shocking to me. But anyway, there's going to be a year from now, actually, a gathering in Germany. So the FME days will be roughly this time, sometime in June of 2016. Will be a lot of fun. There's an English track there and also a Deutsch one. So it should be good.
It's always fun.
And then a year after that, we'll be all back here
in Vancouver.
Okay, Cyphers wants to know, have you explored engines and processes running on GPU?
And the answer to that is, well, it depends what you mean by explore. We've certainly discussed it, and that's certainly something, particularly on the raster side, that we've talked about, and the LiDAR side would fit as well, on how to exploit the amazing processing capabilities of these GPUs. So so that's something that's on the roadmap for sure.
Does Dale have his new Tesla already? Perhaps another translation sample with the new Tesla again.
Actually, I don't. Well, I have my original Tesla, which I was just listening to, being a good fanboy of Elon Musk. He had his annual meeting was yesterday. So I was listening to the recording of that on the drive in my Tesla. But I'm coming up to 2.5 years with it now. So by technology measure, my Tesla is actually quite old now, and but I still, in many ways, it's better than the day I bought it. So I don't really want to change it.
But you do know somebody who basically traded their Tesla in just to so they could get all the sensors and everything.
Yes, that's right.
And you did take a Tesla 85D out for a spin.
Is this being recorded? because I know.
Well, we didn't actually break the speed limit. Well, maybe we did.
I know someone that was with me that really enjoyed the P85D. But actually, seriously, we both decided it was.
It's crazy. It's like
like after we took it for a little rip, as my teenage son would say. We took it for a rip on our way to work.
And it's like a roller coaster.
And it took me roughly 2 hours to calm down. I don't even drink coffee. So so no plans to get a P85D.
Okay, you've seen many changes to the geospatial market over the years. Which one, in your opinion, has had the biggest influence on SAFE and FME? P.S. Don is not allowed to say XML.
Okay.
That's actually really, it's been interesting to watch in many ways the various acquisitions. Like we get a lot of data around what's going on with different players and so on. And I think there's been some really interesting acquisitions going on. I think people like Trimble are doing interesting work acquiring. A lot of these people are acquiring data collection as well as various processing kinds of capabilities. Hexagon has been really interesting to watch them build something out of a bunch of pieces. They're definitely someone to watch. And actually, Esri has been acquiring some things too. And so it's just been really interesting to watch this consolidation. I remember the first one was 15 years ago when MapQuest got bought by AOL for $1 billion back then. And it kind of shocked everybody. And MapQuest was in the news even recently saying that, hey, they're going to start using Mapbox as their rendering engine. So the things change, but they stay the same.
The things that, for me, was the day that Google bought KML or
Right,
Keyhole.
Yes.
Because I remember I was in Germany,
Yep.
and Google had just bought Keyhole, and then all of a sudden, of course, nobody had heard of Keyhole. We had, and we bumped into them. But all of a sudden, there was this full Earth visualization. You could zoom anywhere, and everybody, of course, zooms to their house first, and then wonders why the imagery is old. But I bet you today it's not that old. Again, goes back to what we talked about earlier. So that was one key thing, because that really just changed the whole landscape on what people expected to see. And now you have data in the context. And I think the second biggest thing is Minecraft.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, and the reason Minecraft is big, not because Minecraft is, I mean, it's cool, but it just shows the incredible appetite for 3D environments.
Yeah.
And if we look, if we look in 5 years, we're probably gonna look back at Minecraft and think like Minecraft was Pong, it was to video games.
Yes.
But Pong started the video game revolution, and now they're realistic. And I think in 5 years, we're going to see this full 3D immersion. And of course, we're getting amazing, massive data sets in 3D, and they can create realistic looking things. We saw the thing we did with Esri on the, Mount Vernon. Yeah, and now when these new headsets are within 18 months, probably even by this Christmas, and I think that's going to be the next.
So the trend for us there is to, we actually sat on a Minecraft writer around this company for a year, because we didn't think it necessarily was. It was kind of a fun project that was done during Innovation Days. And but when we actually did it, we were just shocked at the uptake.
Absolutely.
And so I think that the convergence of different gaming technology and geospatial and BIM technology is also about modeling our buildings. All of those things coming together are trends that I think you can't afford to ignore. I didn't actually get a chance to talk to you much about Magic Leap. Do you know those guys at all?
No.
They're apparently they have almost 600 million in funding, Florida company, and their thing is another HoloLensy kind of thing that blurs the distinction between what's real in the scene and what's
it's like augmented reality. So
really hardcore augmented. So we've got things like, again, Google did some more work with cardboard just recently, but you've got the HoloLens, you got Oculus Rift coming very inexpensively, actually. By end of year, rumor on Oculus Rift is that the actual headset will be about $300, but you need a good computer for another $500. So if you didn't have a computer, it's $800 all in. For a GIS professional, that's nothing.
And then you look at these new technologies like CZML, and all these sorts of things with these. It's
right. And I mean, that actually touches on that whole area of the power of browsers. And someone else asked about FME WebTop. Well, the browsers are the new operating system. JavaScript is the new programming language. And so these frameworks can't be ignored. And I mean, these are challenging things for a company like ours when the core of our software goes back 20 some years. And so a lot of what we do is invest like crazy modernizing. I mean, we could sit back on our laurels and kind of ride the thing out. And we know of companies that do that. They have some interesting technology. They got some installed base, and then they say, woohoo, we're done. Just ride her down. We have been investing incredibly to try to keep our platform modern. And that's a hard thing to do. But it's fun, and it sets us up to take advantage of all these emerging technologies. So back to trends, I would say that the importance of gaming formats for GIS professionals being an important trend to watch, and then the platforms for using those gaming formats also being important. Did we answer that question, Tiana? Can't even remember what it was.
Remember what the question was. Okay, Brett wants to know, would you ever break desktop into streams, i.e. based on format groups to target different markets?
That's an interesting one, because it is the case that we're selling. It's like you go to the ice cream store and there's 215 flavors and you go, I can't figure out what I want here. And so it might be better to sell vanilla. I'm a big vanilla guy. But the problem is you'd have many of those. So you'd have an explosion of individual products. Maybe you'd have to craft or carve off different companies to do that.
And typically, we price FME very aggressively. And part of it is if we reduce the formats, people then want to say, okay, that means that if I get a fifth of the formats, I should only pay a fifth of the price. But the truth of the matter is each customer probably only cares about 5 formats.
Just a different 5.
But we do, and one of the things we talk at SAFE is how do we organize it better into groups so that if I'm working with BIM, I only see the BIM formats. And you see lots of tools. There's lots of drawing tools out there where you basically select categories of things, and then you only see those symbols just to get out of the way of everything else. So we
could also gamify it so that you have to have done a certain amount of work before you unlock the XML. The XML functionality is only able to achieve after you've got to level 7.
Okay. Do you have a method to use to decide to throw away support for an idea format transformer, or to go all in to implement that specific feature? Basically, how do you always stay ahead?
Well, a key thing that we do is go out and talk to users and listen. And because of the nature of our product, we tend to have an amazing user community of really cutting edge early adoptery people. And so they have always been the fountain of amazing ideas and amazing insight into what's happening next. So it's kind of like I've used this phrase before, like Sherlock Holmes has his network of homeless kids. Ours is a little bit classier network, but we got this amazing multiplier of input that kind of are out there, and they feed it back up to us. And so we can sense what's going to be big. I mean, and we've also made wrong bets.
Oh,
absolutely. You bet on 10 things and you hope that 3 of them turn out great, and you're happy when 1 does.
Yeah, and the flip side is we've done things that we didn't think were going to be very great, and they have been great. So, but again, going back, and we also are in a very nice spot in the industry in the fact that we're a data pipe. And so as a data pipe, when a new area of endpoints appears, like 3D or LiDAR, then as we're the data pipe, in some sense, we're not actually deciding, is there going to be a market for LiDAR? It's like, holy smokes, these LiDAR things are coming. How do we, and some of them are very hard. The 3D, how many years have we spent on 3D? And only now is it really starting?
8 years. Yeah. I mean, you have to that's the other thing. If you're going to make a technology bet, I think the quote from Bill Gates is, you overestimate what you can do in 1 year and you underestimate what you can do in 10. And that's kind of, we started 3D, we've had grand plans, and, we're coming up on 10.
Yeah,
and
that's a hard problem.
And so we're probably getting there. In terms of saying goodbye to stuff, we basically try really hard to never say goodbye, because we know that customers are out there still using legacy things. There's still people out there using Oracle 7 somewhere, I'm sure. But sometimes the environment forces us. And usually it's when stuff isn't under our control. So we just had to say goodbye in FME 2016. This is going to could result in a lot of hate mail coming in. We're saying goodbye to the GINA format, Don. Are you okay with that?
I saw that go by, and I'm okay with that.
And all the fans that are lighting up there with all the GINA fans. There's lots of people that don't even know what GINA is. Probably it was used by SHL System House Vision. And then that was bought
by Autodesk.
Turned into Autodesk Design Server, I think. So in that case, we ourselves did not have all of the technology that was in that GINA reader. It used some libraries that we got from Autodesk, and they've long since said goodbye to those things. And so even though our agreement would continue on forever, the Windows 10, 7, whatever can't handle this stuff, and there's no 64-bit. And so that one's when we're saying goodbye to. And
when it comes to web services, some things we have to say goodbye to just because the API ends. And so that's happened on a number of them.
I'm looking at you, Google Sheets.
Like Google Sheets came out and says, well, from a user standpoint, great, Google Sheets, but of course they threw away the old API. So for our clients, we work very hard to make sure we support Google Sheets, but when Google Spreadsheets API, there's nothing we can do about it. And so then we just say goodbye, Google Spreadsheets. Right.
Actually, we did also retire the Wang format.
That's right.
There was a Wang GIS.
That's right.
That we did support. And there are people writing in about that.
That was called GDS, wasn't it?
GDMS. Little known bit of trivia, that Wang thing was the grandfather of SDE.
Yes. And
that's why we were very fortunate early on, and I mean early on, to be supporting SDE. We basically
before Esri.
That's right. And so we had the chance, to be the exclusive Canadian distributor of SDE.
Yeah, I know.
We could be retired by now.
That's right.
Okay, Malcolm says, I just returned from Hexagon Live 2015. Now I've got voxels on my mind as I think about their implementations of Euclidean's technology for working with point clouds. Where do you guys see the future heading in geospatial technologies for voxels?
Well, the amazing insight that one of our amazing staff members had was that voxels was actually a partner. Voxels are really regular point clouds.
Yes.
And so the good news is we invested heavily in supporting point clouds.
And so
we're positioned for voxels.
That's right. That's right. So LiDAR is, you've often said LiDAR is poorly behaved raster.
Yes.
And I guess you could say voxels are well-behaved LiDAR.
That's right.
There you go.
That's right. So the Minecraft that we do is that way.
Yeah.
That Euclidean stuff, if it's what I'm thinking of, I think that's this amazing visualization technology from Australia. And that's all based on voxels, basically regular point clouds.
Yeah.
So they can do amazing stuff, zooming and panning and going in. You know, we may want to look at a voxelizer that would take a point cloud. It'd be a pretty easy transformer and just whip it into shape.
Yeah.
So that might be an interesting idea.
Because we're doing that when we write the Minecraft already.
Effectively.
Yeah.
And actually what Dimitri does, most of the Minecraft scenarios, he actually rasterizes first to get that regular layout, and then takes the flat raster and turns that back into voxels.
Yeah.
So anyway, great idea. And yeah, and you know what's funny about voxels is that when I was still at MDA, so that's 23 years ago, I actually was considering leaving MDA to do a master's, and I had made a proposal for what my master's, I had actually written to the SFU and made an early application. It was going to be on voxel technology and GIS. So it may not be too late to get on that master's after all these years.
Okay, we have some love for Apple Watches. Any plans to have an FME demo for wearables?
Well, it's always hard to figure out what the value would be. I know that Innovation Days here, did they actually get, there were no Apple Watches they could test it on.
No, that's right.
But they got some kind of an alert, like if your workspace was done running, because
we played around with the Android watches, and where basically you could start a translation and then find out when it was over, or you could get notifications. So we could certainly look at that. We haven't looked at it so far, but
actually, speaking of Apple Watch, it's telling me it's time to stand up right now.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So this is the part of the day where I stand up. Okay. It's funny. I was wondering, like, is this thing tapping me to say, hey, I'm getting attention or what?
Yeah, that's right. That's funny. That's funny.
Okay, here's interesting. What is the least used format in FME?
Woo, least used. We have to look at the stats. Yeah, SAIF. I think Tiana's feeding us.
How about UFO?
I think it's still used, by the Danes.
Yeah.
I think SAIF. Is there any data left? Some of those old ones, MOEP would be in that category. Any MOEP love out there? SAIF.
Yeah.
But there would be some of these obscure things. Yeah. Well, Gina, we know. Yeah. Since we're throwing it out, we actually. Well, I can say that when we made the decision to throw it out, we looked at our usage stats and we ask all of you to opt in because it helps us if you do. So these are not necessarily exhaustive, but our usage stats showed that in the entire last year, there were 4 cases where somebody popped down a Gina reader or writer. Yeah. And they might have been typos. We're thinking. So anyway, good question.
Okay, what are your favorite formats, not including XML?
Ooh.
Favorite format.
It's kind of like, what's your favorite child? Yeah. I mean, come on, there. How can we pick on one to say it's favorite?
That's a tough one. I like PostGIS a lot. I'm not allowed to. How about XML derivative? I'm allowed to.
Sure.
Okay.
Don likes the Inspire schema access Annex 3.
Yeah, that's right. AIXM, GML. Yeah, no, I think I'm a big fan of PostGIS. I spend a lot of my time in the cloud, so the fact that it runs on RDS is a big deal. So. But like Dale says, there's so many. It depends what you want to do.
You know, there's this thing called the Shapefile Challenge floating around out there, where a group of people are lamenting that shapefiles are basically 1920s technology. Actually, James Fee in his Spatial Tau newsletter wrote a thing about a few months ago talking about our shapefile is going to disappear. This topic has been going on for at least 10 or 15 years. Yeah. I've always thought there are better possible alternatives out there, things like the GeoPackage of OGC, for example. But
everybody supports Shape.
Right, and so even if tomorrow morning Esri would say we're done with Shape, even if they would say that, QGIS and Autodesk and everybody else is going to be using Shape. So I think we're going to be living with Shape for a very, very long time. Actually, we've just invested a whole bunch, ironically, to beef up our Shape inside FME. So in FME 2016, it's got a whole bunch of new features, which is basically because it overwhelms in our usage stats that I talked about. Shape overwhelms everything else, and both on the reading and the writing side. So it's hard to knock off its throne, and
it's not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere.
Yeah, File Geodatabase didn't do it.
Nope. No. So I don't know, but in terms of a favorite, JSON is a pretty attractive thing for a
JSON's-
lot of.
Yeah, and certainly on the website, now all our communication to and from servers JSON only. We've made the decision to move away from XML, as painful as that was. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I still like the old DGN files, but that's because I wrote the original code. And a good old V7 DGN with that PDP-11 way that numbers were encoded.
Really,
Really,
it just makes you
it
makes
just-
you feel all warm inside.
it just zings right along. I know Mark Ireland's with me. He's a big DGN V7 fan too.
Okay, where do you see FME's role in the coming self-driving car revolution and all the spatial data that will come with it?
Yeah,
Well-
I mean, it's all about the data, right? And in the self-driving car, I was listening to a podcast on that talked about the accuracy that they need for these self-driving cars, and it's, you're talking inches, and it's just going to be a sea of data. So I expect FME will be in the back helping grind all that data to that these cars will run on. I don't see an FME in every car, but
No.
I have my fingers crossed.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But we'll be in the back rooms. I mean, without kind of revealing too many secrets, FME is in the bowels of many, if not most, if not all, of the places that grind the data that actually feeds eventually into these things. Because that data didn't start off its life ready to be used in a car.
Yeah.
And so somehow it had to be moved, and our set of tools are obviously a very compelling one for folks like that to use. We have our own internal self-driving car project going on here.
That's
We could
right.
start a rumor about that.
That's right.
We actually are open sourcing it.
Exactly. So we decided to start small. We started with Lego Minecraft.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't ride in it.
No, either would I. There's been a
But,
few incidents.
It nearly fell off the table a few times. But actually, joking aside, we did have, during Innovation Days, some folks experiment with having FME controlling Lego Minecraft vehicle.
Yeah.
It was actually armed, though, too, which
That's right.
the
Which
pacifist in me wouldn't like that.
That's right. That's right.
But you could actually feed it a line, and it would drive along the line.
Yeah.
And we did actually, I think it's open sourced. Are
on
we actually going to
GitHub.
blog about that at some time? Tiana, I think there's an idea to do that.
Yeah, it'll come.
So anyway, somewhere on GitHub, there's our Minecraft transformers, not Minecraft.
Mindstorm.
Man,
Mindstorm. Yeah, we're
both of us have switched that up.
Yeah.
So,
Mindstorm.
Mindstorm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could, hey, maybe you could control the Mindstorm robot within a Minecraft world with a HoloLens on. Now, there would be something.
That would be awesome.
Okay, when do you say stop on the number of formats?
When the world stops inventing them, and
Yeah.
because part of the problem is that there's new data areas. So when we do video, we can't do video without adding more formats.
Yes.
And these 3D visualization worlds, again, when we add a new area of data, they come with new formats. Now, at the end of the day, our XML, I'm going to bring this back to XML, is becoming so good. If people would embrace that with GML with XSDs, then it could only be one.
Then
format.
it'd be done.
Yeah.
Sometimes I know that certain in the community have called us whenever there's a new format and there's controversy, and we say something, we're likened to being the prosthetics, the person who sells artificial limbs that comes into the arms dealer.
That's
party and
right.
says, well, really, it's okay if there's a few more minds.
That's right. That's right.
So it's we're in a no-win situation there. We don't wake up in the morning and say, "Woohoo, let's make more formats."
No.
We are more interested in the like honestly, we wake up in the morning and say, how can we make transformation easier? That's the thing that we love. And how can we make automation better? The formats are a necessary evil.
Yeah.
So I don't get any joy in selling prosthetic limbs to people when new formats get invented. But the fact is that the world keeps changing. And if you said to everybody, look, you have to use DGN V7, as wonderful it is, I'm sorry, that's the only choice. I just don't think that serves the universe. So you can't dictate.
Stop. You can't stop progress, right? I mean, at the end of the day, there's new systems with new capabilities. And if we even look at some, and now we're seeing some formats where the formats themselves are structured so that they can be processed in parallel with multi-cores. And so from the ground up, the format was built that way so that you can easily exploit multi-cores. And so for us to say we're not going to support formats like that is
right. So we don't wake up wanting to do more. But the other thing is that a lot of times folks don't realize there's a difference between an operational format and an exchange format. Yeah. And so that line gets blurred. So people come up with a brand new, wonderful exchange format, but it has wonderful properties if I'm going to send a file to my friend. Yeah. But really, if I'm going to edit in there, then that doesn't make any sense. So and the types of things people want to do with data is unbounded.
Yeah.
And so to kind of think that
Yeah.
one format to rule them all, whatever exists, is not rational. Every time one of these comes out, the one format to rule them all that happens is that it creates a whole ecosystem around bringing stuff in and out of that thing, because you have to go both ways.
Yeah.
And so all these things serve a purpose. And it's been an interesting place for us to sit. The reason we are able to be where we are is that nobody else figured it was worthwhile, because let's face it, it's miserable work. Dealing with all these different formats and the nuances, you have to be very, very attention to detail oriented kind of person. You have to find these technical challenges interesting. You have to pool enough of them together to make economic sense to spend the time that it takes to do a good job of any of them. I mean, all of our users subsidize each other immensely. We basically have a co-op for format people, because no one of the people pays anywhere near the cost of what each format would actually take. But by pooling everybody together, we can subsidize the cost of doing all of them, and that allows us to have the ecosystem that we do. We're going to be doing new formats forever. I think in 2050, the world will be inventing a new one that uses quantum mechanics, and it's stored in molecules, and somehow we're going to have Chris Lundgren be writing a reader for it.
Okay, we have basically a minute left.
Oh, wow.
So let's say, what is the story behind the FME lizard?
Yeah.
And what's the story between Roger Akema?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. The FME lizard first appeared out of nowhere.
Here, let's put him up here. Here he is in his hockey helmet.
There he is in his hockey helmet. Yeah. So he's everywhere on a splash screen for FME. I don't know. Oh boy.
2006, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
Don had a vision.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it was a desert shot, and we thought it'd be kind of fun to have a lizard sitting in a lawn chair drinking a margarita under the shade of a flower.
That was Don's vision. He woke up with his vision, and he gave it to our graphic artist.
That's right. And then we had releases where the lizard was kind of hidden in the splash screen. Then we had one release where there was no lizard, and overwhelmingly the users, and this goes back
more
to
lizard.
They wanted more lizard, and so there you go. So now
it's an obligation. If you look really since I think 2007, I have to look back carefully, but he's been in every one, sometimes only in shadow.
Yes, like the clouds and on the ground, and on Mars or on whatever planet that was. But we're not going to release his name, because that would.
That's right. That's right.
So.
But so that's the deal. And now he's just everywhere. And so he's actually painted all over in our office. There's paintings of him.
Yeah.
And anyway, in terms of Roger Akema, he's a big lizard fan.
He does. Yeah. That's how he got the job. He says, I just want to work with the lizard.
So is that it? Are we all done?
That's it. Yeah, it's 9 o'clock. So that's it.
Yeah. So thanks everybody out there. This was a lot of fun.
Yes.
And thanks, Dale.
Thanks, Don.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tiana, for navigating our way through. And I think off camera, we have Roger and Stephanie somewhere.
That's right. Yeah.
And so thanks to the whole team. Really, probably we should part by just saying thank you to the whole SAFE team that provides us the privilege of coming to work here every day and do such amazing things. And also thanks to all our customers. At the end of the day, you pay the bills that let us do what we do here. We really hope and try hard, and will continue trying to make your days more productive so that you can create value for your organizations by using our products as well.
Yeah, and really it is a partnership, not just with our team, but also with all our users. And a lot of the great ideas, they're not ours. They come to us from our users, and we always enjoy those discussions.
Immensely,
So thanks for that, and keep them coming, and we'll do this again sometime.
We'll do it again sometime. All right, goodbye everybody.
Yeah.
So Roger, how do we turn this thing off? Oh, here he is. Here he is. Oh, he's all blushing.
Top corner.
You should get a picture of you with the lizard there, Roger. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Here we go. End broadcast.
We're ending the broadcast.